If World War III breaks out, which country will disappear first? Some people speculate that it is a major country such as China, the United States, and Russia, because they are the first to be attacked. Some people speculate that it is a small country such as a traditional port, because they are the easiest to destroy. However, the answer surprised many people. Deduction of war according to the UNV regular system. After the start of World War III, the first country to disappear was actually Japan. This issue is for everyone to analyze. Why is Japan so easy to disappear? The reason behind, in fact, as early as the end of World War II, when the United States and the Soviet Union initiated the Cold War, countries began to doubt World War III could break out. After all, after the end of the First World War, the people of the world believed the lies of the European powers, believing that everlasting peace has arrived. The World War will never break out again. The result is well known. World War II not only broke out, and it came very quickly and violently. The length of its duration and the breadth of its territory, unprecedented in human history. It has brought a profound disaster to the human world. The first country to disappear in World War I was Luxembourg, destroyed by the German imperial garrison. And the first country to disappear in World War II was Ethiopia. Ethiopia, exterminated by the Kingdom of Italy in the name of judgment. It's not hard to see. After the outbreak of the World War, the first to disappear, it has to be the small countries next to the big ones. And small countries must have high strategic value. And there must be historical contradictions between small countries and large countries. According to the analysis of the United Nations v. Permanent Think, Japan added between China, the United States, and Russia, fully in line with the above 3 points. Probably the first to disappear after the outbreak of World War III. The first point, Japan is indeed a small country, likely to be the first to disappear in World War III. Although Japan is currently the world's third largest economy, but his overall strength is still relatively weak. Not the same as a big country. On one hand, Japan's economy has been able to develop to this day. Strong situation. It has to do with them being the first to reform. As early as the mid to late 19th century, Japanese cars have launched a famous smart innovation, and riding the east wind of the first modernization reform, became the first major power in Asia. Integrity has taken the lead in the glasses of the times. Japan can only be used in subsequent years. In a war or event, tastes a lot of sweetness. The early development of Japan, all based on colonial plunder, including our country and North Korea, by fighting the model. Japan's national power is growing stronger and stronger. If the modernization of our country, the journey was not interrupted by the powers represented by Japan, then with our understanding, Japanese fundamental, it is impossible to shake the status of the great powers of the East. In addition, Japan was able to recover rapidly after World War II, relying on the aid of the NATO camp, especially the support of the United States. The United States seeks to control Japan to counterbalance Sino-Soviet attempts. After World War II, a Japanese reconstruction plan was passed. The drama of its original funding amount, the Marshall Plan for Western Europe, much more. So, although Japan's economy has recovered rapidly and soon to be back on top, but at the same time, the United States also controls Japan's economic lifeline. Japan is effectively called a subordinate of the United States. Behind the economic veneer of the vassal country's prosperity, it's the weak and vulnerable Japanese chaebol. They can only take orders from the American consortium, in a ridiculous situation where a bubble can only burst. And on the other hand, same with economics and finance, Japanese army. Politics also faces the embarrassment of being manipulated by the United States. Facts can be said. Inside the Japanese cabinet and prime minister's residence, Americans are everywhere. So-called advice for Americans. Japanese military and political officials also had to listen, due to the powerful US 7th Fleet, right under their noses, able to launch a lethal blow against Japan at any time. It's not just in Tokyo Bay. American troops are still on the outskirts of Tokyo, Okinawa, and other regions. A large number of Army and Air Forces were stationed. According to the Americans themselves, the US military stationed in Japan can respond to any adverse situation, make a quick response of land, sea, and air. compared to the powerful US military, with the poor strength of the Japanese army, can't fight it at all. Despite Japan's repeated plots to strengthen its self-defense forces, but they never got it. For example, in 2005, Japan upgraded its self-defense forces to the National Defense Forces without authorization. However, it was eventually stopped by the threat of the US military. Anyway, Japan is not a weak power. Due to the support of the United States, this power is only on the surface. The inside is actually vulnerable. Japan is indeed a small country. Therefore, if World War III broke out, the probability of the small country, Japan, disappearing first does not count. And then the next day, the location of Japan determines that his strategic value will not be small. It will definitely be the first to be affected by the three wars. On the one hand, it's very well known. Japan's geographical conditions are not good. It's a long, narrow island. While away from the American continent, across the sea from the Eurasian continent, very close range. The situation of orphans overseas, this has led Japan to want to cooperate with other countries and regions. Communicate. It costs more than other countries, more time and energy. And Japan is still in the Taiping earthquake zone. Frequent geographical activity. Multiple volcanoes in the country. For example, the famous Mount Fuji is a fire volcano. The most recent eruption recorded was in the 18th century. The time span is not far. And not only that, as an industrial resource, it is very scarce. Countries with scarce available arable land. It is difficult for Japan to develop independently. Therefore, Japan's severe geographical conditions, nature dictates that they can only come from outside. Access to resources. In history, every time Japan makes a national leap, it's all through studying abroad. For example, our country in ancient Tang Dynasty and modern European and American countries. To Jingqi. This exchange also turned into war, however, due to resource constraints. Therefore, an expansion. Most of the time, it only leads to bad results. Instead, it weakens itself. And so on. The poorer Japan is, the more it wants to expand. It creates a vicious cycle. Therefore, the think tank forecasts, the Third World War is very likely to break out because of Japan. They want to alleviate or transfer internal material contradictions. Only launch a war of foreign aggression. So it pulls and launches the whole body. The formation of a world war mechanism does not break out. Japan is also highly likely to suffer from internal conflicts or volcanic eruptions, global warming, sea level rise, and other reasons. He disappeared before the war started. On the other hand, Japan's external political conditions are also very difficult. Between China, the United States, and Russia, to his west, the nearest one happens to be our country. Although our country pursues a diplomatic strategy of not seeking hegemony, will not take the initiative to mediate disputes with Japan. But after all, our country's understanding is at the forefront of the world. Japan cannot be unaffected. On the north face, to be next to the furry bear. The temper of the furry bear has been experienced in all countries of the world. A proper fighting nation. With the temper of a furry bear, the conflict between Japan and Russia is inevitable. And to add insult to injury, to his east, the world's #1 capitalist power, the United States. The United States relies on its strong industrial and agricultural strength. It has formed a seal on all aspects of Japan. Lock and control. The so-called first island chain concocted by the United States. Japan is one of the most crucial. The region has also become a part of China, the United States, and Russia. The forefront of diplomatic engagement, it can be said that there are no other countries or regions. It is comparable to Japan's strategy. Value of World War III broke out. As a former player in the game of the top 3 countries in the world, the line of Japan will surely be affected by the war. And this war, it will spread to unprecedented levels. Either the United States took over Japan in the first place, incorporate it into the United States, or other countries land in Japan, make it effectively destroy the country, or the strategic confrontation between countries. Japan, caught in the middle, has since fallen into the dust. And finally, number 3, Japan has deep conflicts with its neighboring powers. As a result, it is very likely to be the first to disappear in the 3 wars. In history, Japan and Mao Zedong, America and our country, there have been irreconcilable conflicts, without exception. When Japan went to war first, also committed the crime of celebrating the Hard Book. During the Russo-Japanese War around 1904, militarist Japan, without the consent of our country, invaded the northeast of our country without authorization, raided the Russian army. In the end, Russia was defeated by the Japanese and returned, forced to cede the southern part of Kai Island and surrounding islands. The war was long regarded as a humiliation by Russia. The historical contradictions between Japan and Russia are also left behind. There are still territorial disputes. The relationship between the United States and Japan is also not very good. Famous sneak attack during World War II. Pearl Harbor, for example. The United States regards this as a great disgrace. The contradictions between fascist Japan and its own country can't bridge. American people, I will always remember Pearl Harbor. Unfortunate casualties. However, compared to the United States and Russia, the crimes committed by Japan against our country are the most hateful. During the Sino-Japanese War, in the two major wars of the anti-Japanese war, Japan has committed horrific massacres. November 1894, the Japanese invaded our country. The massacre began for 4 days and 3 nights. After that, Lushin became unknown. December 1937, after the Japanese invaders captured Nanjing in our country. Bestiality? 6 weeks of carnage unfolded again. More than 300,000 our country were brutally murdered. The city of Nanjing was almost emptied. And not only that, Riku is in mainland China. A host of other crimes were also committed. Evil 731 germ troop, the infamous 3-light policy, and more. However, in the face of hard facts, another Japanese government, but adhering to the attitude of avoiding talking about it, while tampering with textbooks, while launching a public opinion war to eliminate hatred, trying to cover up historical crimes. Therefore, Japan and China, America and Russia. The historical contradictions between the three major powers, very profound, especially the Sino-Japanese conflict. National hatred and family hatred are not enough to describe. The historical hatred between the two countries. If World War III breaks out, Japan will definitely pay for their crimes, pay the price. China, the United States, and Russia, I'm afraid they are happy to avenge their own citizens. In short, through the wisdom of various countries. Libraries World War III deduction. National strength is not strong. High strategic value. Japan, which is in conflict with its surrounding powers. There's no question. The country that aspires to be the first to disappear in the war. A major change unseen in a century. People of our country do not like war but are not afraid of war. A country with bad intentions dares to provoke. Our country will teach him to come and go.